All right, the escalating tensions there and the violence has prompted German authorities now to deploy reinforcements from Germany. More than 160 police officers have already been hurt since the world leaders arrived in Hamburg for the G20 summit. At least 70 people are now in custody with regards to this. All right, to get the very latest on this, we go to WION's senior foreign editor joining us live from Hamburg, Padma Rao. Padma, we understand there's a lot of violence happening there, clashes, people burning things in the streets, looting. What's the mood like as far as the protests go? What have you seen over the last few hours?
Archit, where we are right now is the so-called blue zone. It's the high security area, and what the protesters are calling themselves, the zone where they are, or rather the other end of town, is the so-called black zone, in reference to the protests, the black flags that are being raised against this summit here. We hear that there are a total of 100. In fact, we've been seeing, the whole city is swarming with protesters from all over the world. There are about 100,000 protesters here, and out of them, only about 1,500, that's a small pocket, have been very violent. Especially last night, they burst into shops, they vandalized shops, they broke and they even broke flagstones off the pavements to fling at the police. They've been shooting pellet guns at the police. One of them tried to down a police helicopter with and a police officer was taken into hospital with laser injuries, and 19 Greenpeace swimmers tried to even swim across the Elbe River. In fact, divers tried to get across to the Elbe River, but they were arrested at the Elbe River. At the other end was the concert which was taking place last night in the presence of all the leaders of the G20 summit. So the police are saying, and about 197 police officers have sustained serious injuries and have been taken to hospital from pellet guns, from all kinds of things that the small pocket of violent protesters seem to have accumulated. So this is, of course, not on vandalizing public property and hurting police officers who are, after all, only carrying out their duties. This is the darker side to these demonstrations. Having said that, the majority of them are in protesting very peacefully, and the issues they are protesting against, of course, are the ones that you have just repeated. This is protectionism, this is the big capitalist world again, as opposed to the developing world, and such issues.
Padma, certainly, quite a scene there, quite chaotic there indeed. And as you mentioned, it seems like the protesters, at least a good part of them, protesting on globalization, capitalism, as well as climate change, saying that, about 20 world leaders shouldn't decide the fate for the rest of the world. In terms of the media coverage in Germany, Padma, what has it been like? We know you speak German, you speak Deutsch. How is the German media reporting this? And has there been any threats to crews like the WION crew there on the ground in Hamburg?
The German media has been, of course, focusing on the violence, because this is an aspect which cities in Germany haven't seen on this scale before, especially Hamburg. That is the aspect that most of the media have been focusing on. Of course, they're writing about the proceedings at the G20 summit also, and they're also looking at certain meetings like the one between President Trump and President Putin in a very critical light. There has been pretty balanced reporting here, but the focus seems to be on the level of violence and the level of protests, which neither the city nor the country has actually seen before.
Padma, with regards to what you've seen there on the ground, you mentioned that there were some peaceful protests, but what we're seeing, at least from a lot of the coverage, is, of course, the fireworks, people burning the cars, people really, getting out in the streets, holding those signs. It seems certainly violent. Is it really disrupted? I mean, is it hard to navigate from one part of the city to another? It seems like that's the goal of the protesters, to limit the travel for the G20 leaders so that they're sort of stuck in one place. What's the ground situation like, at least from your vantage point?
Yes, absolutely. As I said, we're in the so-called blue zone, which is the high security zone. It is completely, I mean, the city is shut down. There are, the shops are hardly open. Most of the shops in Hamburg at this time of year is a very popular city for tourists because it is a beautiful city, but its shops are shut down, and almost every second shop carries a sign saying that, because of the G-20 summit, we're not going to be open. There are no taxis, there is no public transport. There is public transport, but it's a skeletal kind of service, because obviously the authorities fear that protesters and vandalizers may also cause some damage to the underground subway systems and all that. So buses are running slow, or if they're running at all, they're very full. As far as the blue zone itself is concerned, you cannot leave or enter the blue zone except on foot. So there are no cars, for instance, where I'm standing. I don't know if the camera can perhaps, or maybe you can see them behind me. These are all cars of people who actually live here. It's all been, it's thoroughly checked. There are helicopters hovering overhead literally every 2 seconds, and there are, hundreds of police cars. There are a total 20,000 policemen and women, Archit, and they are from all parts of the country. So we've been, we're spotting a lot of people from other states in Germany, like North Rhine-Westphalia, and even from as far as Bavaria. So they're leaving no stone unturned to ensure that the summit goes off peacefully, and they have done a magnificent job by keeping their cool. Having said that, it's not on to assault policemen either, or policewomen, and as I said, 197 of them were severely injured and are in hospital. So that is the dark side. And the protesters, as I said, pardon the expression, are leaving no stone unturned either. A small section of them have been picking up flagstones, have been picking up any object they can find, bollards, anything, and just flinging them at the police. Beer bottles are a particularly popular weapon. Many a policeman has been hurt by the shards of beer bottles, some of them in the eyes. So this aspect has lent a very sort of dark, pulled a dark cloud over the otherwise very peaceful protests.
All right, Padma, getting us the very latest.
To your question, Archit, about why you are seeing mostly the pictures.
Right. Go ahead, Padma. Sorry.
I'm sorry. To your question about why the protesters. Yeah, to your question about why why you're getting predominantly the pictures of violent protests. Well, the media is obviously picking up those aspects because they also want to highlight the kind of violence that is being used by a certain section of protesters who are otherwise peaceful and by and large have just been sitting out in demonstrations.
All right, Padma, getting us the very latest there. Stay safe there and get us all that reporting from Hamburg. We appreciate all of those inputs this morning.